Tom Johnson and James Gustafson. We're going to go over, first of all, how to set up your car, preparation to start driving, and then we're going to go ahead and talk about steering, using reference points to do parking, and then we're going to also park uphill and downhill. First of all, what I do when I get into a car is I want to adjust this seat. When I adjust the seat, I want to make sure that I have at least a foot of distance between my body and the steering wheel, so that when the airbag comes out, it has time to explode and room to explode, and I'm not interfering with that at all. Also, at this time, you want to adjust your steering wheel. You want to make sure that you guys can see the entire dashboard. You can adjust it to how you like it, but again, you want to make sure that you have clearance here so that you can see your entire dashboard. After you adjust your seat, then you want to put your seat belt on. The belt's got to come over the shoulder and the sternum securely. Again, you want your butt flat in there, back straight. At this point now, I want to adjust my mirrors. And the technique we want to do is we want to eliminate as much of the blind spot as we can. So as I adjust my left mirror, I'm going to put my cheek about as close to the window as I can, and I'm going to adjust it so that I can barely see the side of your car and everything to the left of it. Now as I sit back in my seat, I cannot see the side of my car. I'll also do the same thing on my right side. I'm going to put my head about even with the rear view mirror. I'm going to go ahead and adjust my mirror on this side to where I barely see the side of the car and everything to the right of it. Now as I sit back, I cannot see the side of the car. Again, what we're trying to do is we're trying to eliminate as much of the blind spot off to the sides as we can. In my rear view mirror, I want to see the entire back end, my entire back window clearly. Okay, cut. We're going to teach reference points at this time. What is the purpose of reference point? Is kids need to know where they're at in space, where the space is at around the car. So we're going to, at this time, we're going to illustrate where the blind spots are at on the car. So I'm first of all going to illustrate the driver's side. Let me know when you can see my feet.
Yep.
Now we'll do the front. Let me know when you can see my feet.
Yep.
Let me know when you can see my feet.
Yep.
Let me know when.
Go ahead. Good.
Okay, at this point, if we were to go ahead and draw a line to connect all these circles, anything inside the circle, the person is not be able, the driver is not be able to see the ground. So that is the reason that we need to teach reference points, is because they need to know where they're at in space, and it's critically important when they're getting close to objects that they can tell where their vehicle is at. So again, if I were to connect these cones right here, it kind of looks like a lima beam. Roughly, the distance from my car to here is about a car width of that vehicle. The distance from the vehicle to the front is about a length of my car. If I were to measure the distance from my vehicle to the cone here, it's about 2 car widths. And if I were to measure the distance from the end of my car to that cone, it's about 2 car lengths. Okay, reference points that we want to establish. As I'm sitting as a driver over there, when I go ahead and look at a curb and I see the curb line up with the middle of my hood right here, that tells me that my car is about 3 to 6 inches away from the curb. If I were again the driver and I would see the curb through the middle of the right hand side of my hood right here, that tells me that my vehicle is about 3 feet away from the curb. If I were the driver again and I saw the curb through the end of my vehicle right here, that tells me that my vehicle is about 6 feet away from the curb. When we're backing up, we also have a back pivot point, which is our back tire, which is roughly the back end of my small window. So as I'm backing up, I'm looking through this window, and when I see this line up with the back end, say, of a driveway, or if I'm pulling into a perpendicular stall and this lines up with the first line of my stall, I know I need to pivot. So this is my back pivot point as I'm backing up, and those are my 3 front pivot or reference points right up there. As far as my front reference point right now, how do I know when my front bumper is close enough to the yellow line that separates the stalls? What I'm doing is I'm looking underneath my mirror, and I can see the yellow line underneath my mirror, either on my... When you steer, you do not want to wrap your thumb around the steering wheel. If you get on a head-on collision and take a jar with your hands, that's going to break the bone right here, which would break your thumb. So what we teach is when you steer, we want to have our thumb in the upright position right here. So again, that alleviates that situation of possibly breaking your thumb. Basically 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, or 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock. We pretty much teach the 9 o'clock technique, 9 and 3 technique. When we're going slow and need to make sharp turns, we're going to use hand over hand technique, like such. Again, we only want to use this technique when we're going slow and need to make sharp turns. The reason that we don't want to do a lot of hand over hand technique is that right now, if my airbag would explode, it would take my hands and push it straight back into my face. So that technique is not advised to use a lot. But again, if we need to make a sharp turn at slow speeds, we will use the hand over hand technique. I'd say 85% of the time as you're driving, what we teach is to use push-pull technique. Again, we can keep our hands at 9, 3, 4, 7 for that. And what you do is you just go ahead and push and pull with the other arm. And again, you can make
it a little rough.
What's that? Oh.
It's all over the place. That's not going to work.
Okay. I'll start.
So you're going to have to slow down a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Okay.
You're going over the bumps, and I'm all over the place.
Okay. Was that hand over hand?
Yeah. You want to do probably the hand over hand was okay. It's just a push pull.
Okay.
Just go a little slower.
Okay. Okay. Majority of the time we want to use push pull technique. Pull down, push up with the other hand.
Nice and slow. Got plenty of room to work with here.
Pull down, push up. This technique is effective because if the airbag were to explode at this time, my hands would not interfere with the airbag at all. It'd be able to inflate, and I would still be able to keep control of the vehicle.
Okay, go ahead. Go again.
Let's say at this point right here, I want to make a left-hand turn, and I want to drive at the number 13 over there on the right above the door of the high school. So as I'm making my turn, what I want to do is I want to keep turning, and then when this post lines up with the number 13, which is called my target area, I want to go ahead and start slightly accelerating, and then let my wheel come back so that my target area is at 12 o'clock. So I'll demonstrate that right now. I'm going to drive at the number 13 above the school door. So I'm going to start my hand over hand motion. Now as it lines up with the post, I accelerate, open my fingers, and again at 12 o'clock my vehicle is facing at the number 13.
See. Go ahead.
So I'm going to drive up until I can see the number 70 without looking over the first yellow line. Now at this point here, I will start turning my wheel. close enough to the curb. What I'm gonna do this time now is I want the top of the curb. I want to see the curb match up with this post window combination right here. So I'm gonna drive up until they match, which should be about right there. Now put the car into park. Point we're angle parking. I'm gonna drive up. Again, I want to be a good distance away from the stall lines as I'm coming up. I want to go forward until I can see the number 10 without looking over the first yellow line. That tells me that's where I want to start turning the wheel. Now I'm going to start turning the wheel. Now at this point now, how do I know when this corner of my car is close enough to the curb? What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the post window combination down there, and I'm going to drive forward until that matches up with the sidewalk curb. So I'm going to keep going forward and forward until I can see the curb line up with the bottom of the post window combination, which is about right there. And now I'll put the vehicle into park.
Go ahead.
I'm just using my side here, side to side, to guide me back. I'm keeping both hands on the wheel when I just drive a short distance. And as I get close, I look through the back window so I can see about the middle line. I'm looking through my back window. I can either look on this side, I can see the yellow line in the back of this window.
Hey, go ahead.
Should I talk?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to drive up until I can see the middle of the stall. At this point now, what I want to do is I want to go at a 45-degree angle off of this stall. So what I'm doing is I'm picking an object right off my mirror, which in this case here would be that light pole. So I want my steering wheel facing 12 o'clock at that light pole. So I'm now going to turn. So my steering wheel is facing at 12 o'clock. Now at this point I put the car into reverse. I'm going to back up until my back reference point lines up with that first line. I'm going to use my side here for that. So I'm going to back up until I feel like my back tire is even with the first stall line. Once I got that, now I start turning. And again, I back up and I use my back reference point again, either on this side or on this side. Again, put my indicator out. Now I'm parking on a downhill incline. Again, as I gradually move my vehicle over, I want to roughly see the top of the curb line up with the middle of my hood. Line up with the middle of my hood, the top of the curb. Now when I'm on a downhill incline, what I want to do is I want to turn my wheels into the curb. Now if my car cut loose, the front wheels now would just go into the curb. Again, when I park on a downhill incline, I want to put the emergency brake on first to put all the weight of the car on the emergency brake, and then I put the transmission into park. There should be no pressure at all now on our transmission. Now again, when I leave, I put my left-hand indicator on. I put the car into drive. Again, there was no pressure there at all. Now I can turn my wheels to the outside and I can leave.
Fire this baby up.
At this time, I'm going to pull over to a curb. So I put my right hand indicator on. I start sliding my vehicle. I don't want to head directly to the curb. I want to go at an angle.
You're losing me. Hold on.
Yeah, we'll start over.
Let me start from up here.
Okay. Okay, I'm at an angle park, so I'm putting my indicator on. And I'm moving slowly over to the curb. How do I know when the right-hand side of my car is close enough to the curb? What I'm doing is I want to line up the top of the curb with the middle of my hood. So as I'm driving up, I want to see the top of the curb line up with the middle of my hood. That tells me that I'm roughly about 3 to 6 inches away. Now I'm on an uphill incline, so I also want to turn my wheels. So at this point here, when I'm on an uphill incline, I want to turn my wheels to the towards the middle of the road. So I'm going to pull it to this technique right here. Now if my car cut loose, what would happen is my back of my car would swing out in the road a little bit, but then my front wheels will catch the curb.
Hold on. Okay, go ahead.
Another thing, when people park on a hill, is they put the car into park and then they put the emergency brake on. And I've seen cars have trouble getting their car out of park because their transmission was locked. So what I teach kids to do is when they park on a hill, put the emergency brake on first. What that does now, it puts all the pressure of the car on the emergency brake. Now you put the car into park and there's no pressure at all on your transmission. Now when you're ready to leave this area, you just put your left-hand indicator on. Now put the car into drive. Now look at, there is no tension at all on my transmission at all. Now I take my emergency brake off and now I'm ready to proceed onto the road. Okay, we are now parallel parking. As I pull up to my vehicle here, I want to roughly be about 3 feet or about a car's door length away from the vehicle. So as I'm pulling up to the vehicle, I want to see him through the middle of the right-hand side of my hood. So as I'm coming up, I'm eyeballing that as best I can. I want to be parallel to the car. And as I pull up, what I want to be is I want to match up my back end to his back end. So what I want to see is I want to see his back end through my small window in the back. That tells me that our back ends roughly have matched up. Now I'm going to put the car in reverse, and at this point I'm going to crank the wheel all the way to the right. And I'm going to back up until I can see across the back end of the vehicle I want to parallel park behind. So I'm going to back up, got it cranked all the way. I can see across the back end of his vehicle right now. So at this point now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, while the car's in motion, I'm going to straighten out the tires and I'm going to continue backing up. At this point here, students that I teach have trouble deciding when their front bumper has cleared their back bumper. So what I teach the kids is I try to identify the middle of the back end of their vehicle, which in this case here would be the Toyota sign. I want to see that Toyota sign in my front window in the corner here. When I can do that, that tells me that my front bumper has matched their back bumper. So I'm going to continue until I can see his front, that Toyota sign in my window. Once I can see that, I now can start turning my wheels back the other way. Then at this point here, what I want to do is I want to straighten out the tires, and then I'm going to drive forward, and then I secure the vehicle, put it in the